stands up and tries to tell an anecdote about her experience, she's told she's making a speech. Then the council for the state stands up and says that we haven't given enough personal details as to how we're affected. In other words, we haven't made enough speeches in our affidavits about our own situation. And this goes on and on and on, this ridiculous kind of charade, which is really like a game in which they make the rules, like the lockdown, and we have to just abide by them. And I mean, the ridiculous thing of it now is they're trying to say we have no standing. And what their argument is now is that unless you're actually directly able to say, I mean, there's a precedent in our, several precedents, but one famous one, the great Raymond Crotty took a case against An Taoiseach in 1987. And in that case it was established that he had the standing to take this action, even though he didn't necessarily at that time suffer any of the consequences of the things he was objecting to. Now, we actually have outlined in great detail many of the things that we are affected by. Not exhaustively, but nevertheless, they're still saying, and what they're actually saying, and this is how crazy it is, that in, say, for example, the provisions in relation to the Mental Health Act, which are used, employed, or piggybacked upon this legislation to effectively detain people for unlimited durations on the say-so of essentially a solicitor. They're actually saying now that we cannot avail of this essentially because we're not mentally ill.
Are we in relation to the Gardaí? The judge effectively said, so do they need to be arrested? This is what they want. You see, they would love for me to be arrested, because then the fake news, journalist arrested. That is effectively what the senior counsel for the state said in there in the last hour, that we would need to be arrested.
So is the judge incompetent?
Now the judge,
unable to
the judge seemed to, I don't know, it's hard to know, the judge seemed to disagree with that.
He asked some probing questions, it is true. We cannot say, to be honest, we have faith in the judge. At this time we have faith. We have faith in the process. Well, I think we have to keep an open mind as to, because necessarily judges...
The law's on your side, John.
They have to be, in a sense, devil's advocates in the courtroom. And they have been very strongly devil's advocates against us, it is true. We don't mind, we're able to deal with things. But you might observe, if you were in the court, you might well observe that the same approach does not appear to be taken to the state side. But we reserve judgment on that until we see what happens. But the point I would like to make about it is that, you know, really, I understand that the law is based on the letter of the law, and therefore you are constantly dealing with meanings and technicalities to some extent. But it seems that our system has reduced it to nothing else. That you cannot go in as a human person and simply say, the guards are all over the place intimidating everybody, including us. Can you stop it, Judge? Can you put a stop to it? Can you injunct these guards and stop them and put them back to work doing what they ought to be doing? And stop the whole process of lying to the public about the so-called pandemic and the exaggeration of figures and so on and so forth. All of this, which is destroying our country and is set now, we're heading, as I keep saying, tumbling towards the precipice of an extraordinary economic calamity, which will result in unlimited calamities of bankruptcies, unemployment, loss of homes, loss of life through suicide and through failure to get treatment that is required, and so on. Well, I have heard unofficially that suicide is up about 50%.
Yeah, it is.
In the past. And this is not part. You see, because the media, the corrupt media, RTE, etc., refuse to report anything that is not added with the agenda of the government.
So essentially the judge is under review that you haven't got to yet. Essentially the judge is actually conducting the review.
Yes, exactly. This is where it's impossible. It's impossible because even now they're talking about scientific evidence. I mean, we are not scientists. They're saying we're laypeople. Well, of course we are, because nobody else stepped forward to do this.
Yes, and in fact, he's doing the review before you get
pretty much. I mean, you want to see the truckload of paper we brought home with us yesterday. I mean, we'll have to move out of our houses. We'll have nowhere to lock ourselves up. We'll be homeless because we have no room with all this. Absolute. I mean, essentially, we got the contents of the waste paper baskets of the Department of Health on Sunday night for 3 months. From every scrap of paper they could find, they shoved it into this folder and sent it to us, so as to bamboozle us and waste our time and waste our energy and make us feel, oh, so sad And but we're not. We're uplifted by the fact of you being here, all of us being here together. You know, where we go to, we go all. Where we go to, we go all. Where we go to, we go all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I just want to say one other issue, John, that we failed to mention about the Irish Ifigul.
Oh yes.
Which is critical. So legislation that is enacted must be published so that the public know, if they want to check, on a website called Irish Ifigul, which is the government website, effectively, where they publish all laws that are enacted by the Oireachtas.
Sorry, Gemma, Irish?
Ifigul.
Now, it's actually mentioned in the Constitution. That's how important it is, okay? So, unfortunately, there has been an awful lot of discrepancies in relation to that. And you know that these regulations changed again. I think it's now 5K, is it? Or all the nonsense. Yeah. On Friday, they changed. These regulations have not been updated on the Irish Ifigul website, which is now only publishing online due to the restrictions. So, today, the Gardaí are acting unlawfully, and every single one of you who is detained would have a case against the state. Now, we drew this to the judge's attention at the outset of today's hearing, that we believe this legislation is, we know it is unconstitutional ourselves, but we can actually show that they have not followed the rules laid down in the Constitution in terms of showing the public the legislation that they have to abide by. And this isn't the first time they have failed to publish this in Irish Ifigul. They also failed a couple of weeks ago. There was a period of about 2 or 3 days.
That's right,
where the Gardaí were acting outside of the legislation. Now, who is going to end up paying for all of these cases? Who? No, because we are going to create a new Ireland. This Ireland is coming because we've had enough of it.
Yes.
We've had enough tribunals up in that castle up there that have cost, maybe in some cases it's arguable that money was brought in, but nobody has gone to jail. Nobody loses their jobs. Nobody loses their pensions. Look at Noreen O'Sullivan. She swans off to the United Nations. She's still getting her big Garda. She's going to get her big Garda pension. The new Ireland that John and I are more determined to create than ever is that the taxpayer will stop having to fund the criminality of the state. Going into funding their criminality. The fees for these lawyers up in Dublin Castle and down there in the CCJ and wherever. It is relentless billions that should be going back into your health service, into your children's schools, into our environment, cleaning up our rivers, our landscapes, everything that is our farming, helping us to create the nation that we deserve. We need to drain the swamp. Nothing can change until we do that. These courts have to be cleaned out from top to bottom. Garda headquarters up the road has to be cleaned out from top to bottom. And across the river in Leinster House, cleaned out from top to bottom. Yeah, because we have to go back in, but hopefully you'll be here when we come out.
We'll be here, don't worry.
Thanks a million. Back in this afternoon. Back in. You shouldn't be too late.
Thank you, Gemma.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Woo! Brilliant. Yeah, because we do our picture. Steve, maybe we should do the picture now.